The rain started at exactly 2:13 a.m. Not a normal rain. It sounded wrong. Each drop hit the roof of Daniel Mercer's cabin like tiny fingernails tapping from above. Slow, deliberate, almost impatient. Daniel sat alone at his desk, headphones pressed tightly over his ears as he edited audio for his YouTube channel. The screen illuminated his tired face in pale blue light. Outside the isolated forest cabin, miles away from the nearest town, the storm rolled across the mountains like a living creature. Thunder growled. The lights flickered. Daniel paused the audio. Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. He frowned. It wasn't the roof. The sound came from the window behind him. Slowly, Daniel turned around. Nothing. Only darkness. The glass reflected the inside of the room back at him, his desk, the microphone, stacks of old VHS tapes, coffee cups, and the tired expression of a man who hadn't slept properly in weeks. Tap. This time louder. Daniel stood. The floorboards creaked beneath his feet. He moved toward the window. Outside, rain slid down the glass in crooked lines. The forest beyond looked endless. Black trees, shifting shadows. No movement. He exhaled slowly. Probably a branch, he muttered. Then lightning flashed. For less than a second, the forest lit up white, and someone stood between the trees, watching him. Daniel staggered backward. The lightning vanished. Darkness swallowed everything again. His pulse hammered in his throat. Nope. He locked the window immediately. Another flash. The figure was gone. Daniel forced himself to laugh. You're losing it. He sat back down at his desk and resumed editing, but he couldn't focus anymore. His eyes kept drifting toward the window, toward the forest, toward the place where the figure had stood. The audio timeline on his computer crawled forward. A paranormal interview. An old man talking about hearing voices in abandoned tunnels. Normally, Daniel loved this stuff. His audience loved it too. He ran one of the fastest-growing horror narration channels on YouTube. Ghost stories, true crime, urban legends, lost broadcasts. People binge-watched his videos late at night with headphones on. Millions of views, thousands of comments. And lately, one specific topic had exploded across the internet. The Black Pines broadcast. A mysterious radio transmission discovered in an abandoned ranger station deep in Oregon. Nobody knew who recorded it. Nobody knew if it was real. But clips of the audio had spread everywhere. Most people thought it was an ARG, a hoax. Daniel thought so too. Until 3 days ago. That was when an unmarked package arrived at his cabin. No return address. Inside was a single VHS tape. On the label, written in faded black marker, "Do not play after midnight." Of course, Daniel played it. Nothing happened at first. Static. Then grainy footage of a forest, trees swaying in silence. No audio, no people. Just endless woods filmed by someone breathing heavily behind the camera. The tape lasted 47 minutes. At the very end, a face appeared, only for one frame. Pale skin, wide black eyes, a smile stretched impossibly far. Daniel nearly threw the tape across the room, but what truly terrified him wasn't the face. It was what came afterward. His computer speakers began whispering. Even after the tape ended, even after he unplugged the VCR, a low, distorted voice repeating the same sentence over and over. He found you. Daniel deleted the footage, or at least he thought he did, because every night since then, the file reappeared on his desktop, no matter how many times he erased it. And tonight, the whispers had returned, very faint, barely audible beneath the rain. Daniel slowly removed his headphones. There it was again, a voice, coming from his computer speakers, soft, crackling, broken. Behind you. Daniel froze, every muscle locked. The room suddenly felt ice cold. Slowly, very slowly, he turned around. Nobody. But the hallway leading deeper into the cabin was dark. Too dark. The kind of darkness that felt thick, alive. He swallowed hard. "Okay," he whispered nervously. "This isn't funny anymore." The speakers crackled louder. "Don't let him see you." The lights went out. Complete darkness consumed the cabin. Daniel cursed and grabbed his phone. The flashlight flickered on. Weak white light trembled through the room. The rain outside intensified. Something thudded upstairs. Daniel looked up slowly. Another thud. Heavy, like footsteps. But Daniel lived alone. The upstairs storage area hadn't been used in months. Thud, thud, thud. Slow footsteps crossed the ceiling above him. Daniel backed away. His breathing became shallow. The flashlight beam shook violently in his hand. "Hello?" No answer. Only footsteps, then silence. A long, horrible silence. And suddenly, the attic door creaked open upstairs. Daniel heard it clearly. Wood dragging slowly across wood. Something moving. Something waking up. His instincts screamed at him to run, but fear rooted him in place. The flashlight flickered. For half a second, the hallway ahead went dark. When the light returned, someone stood at the end of the hall. Tall, thin, motionless. Its arms hung too low. Its head tilted unnaturally sideways. Daniel's entire body went numb. The thing didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. It simply stared. Then the flashlight died. Darkness. Daniel screamed. He stumbled backward, crashing into his desk. The speakers exploded with static, and through the noise, the voice whispered, "He's inside now." Daniel fumbled desperately for the flashlight. His shaking hands finally smacked against it. The beam returned. The hallway was empty. Nothing there. No figure. No movement. Daniel's chest rose and fell rapidly. He grabbed his car keys. He was leaving, immediately. He rushed toward the front door, unlocked it, opened it, and froze. Standing on the porch was a man soaked by rain, middle-aged, bearded, wearing an old ranger uniform. His eyes looked terrified. "Don't let it hear you," the man whispered. Daniel stared. "What?" The ranger shoved a small portable radio into Daniel's hands. "You played the tape, didn't you?" Daniel's silence answered the question. The ranger looked like he might cry. "Oh God." Lightning flashed behind him. The forest briefly illuminated. Hundreds of shapes stood between the trees, watching the cabin. Daniel slammed the door shut. "What the hell is happening?" he shouted. The ranger locked every deadbolt. Then he turned off Daniel's flashlight. The cabin fell dark again. "Be quiet," the ranger whispered. "Why?" "Because it listens." Daniel stared at him. The radio in his hands hissed softly, static. Then a woman's voice emerged. "If anyone hears this broadcast, do not go outside after 2:13 a.m. The ranger closed his eyes. "We're too late." A slow scratching sound came from the walls. Not outside, inside. Something crawled within the cabin itself. Daniel backed away. The scratching spread across the walls and ceiling simultaneously, like dozens of fingernails dragging through wood. the ranger spoke quickly. "My name is Elias Ward. I worked at Black Pines Ranger Station 11 years ago." Daniel struggled to process anything. "What is this thing?" Elias looked toward the ceiling. "We called it the listener." The scratching stopped. Silence flooded the cabin. Elias's face turned pale. "That's bad." A voice suddenly echoed from upstairs. Daniel's voice. "Hello?" Perfectly copied, exactly like him. Daniel's stomach dropped. Again the voice came. "Hello?" This time closer. Elias whispered, "It mimics people after it hears them." The upstairs floor creaked. Slow footsteps approached the staircase. Daniel couldn't breathe. The voice called again from the darkness. "Daniel?" He never told Elias his name. The footsteps stopped halfway down the stairs. Then came a sound Daniel would never forget. A smile. Not visually, audibly. The wet, stretching sound of skin tearing wider. The radio burst alive again. "This is Ranger Station 4, a panicked voice shouted through static. "If anyone receives this, evacuate immediately. It can imitate human speech. Do not respond to voices in the woods." A scream erupted from the radio. Then silence. Elias pulled Daniel toward the kitchen. "We need salt." "What? Now!" Daniel grabbed table salt from the counter. Elias poured lines of it across windows and doorways. "What is that supposed to do?" Elias didn't answer. The staircase creaked again. Something descended one step at a time, but it moved wrong. Too many footsteps, like several legs trying to imitate a human walk. Daniel stared into the darkness. A hand appeared around the corner. Long fingers, black nails, bent backward. Then another hand. Then another. Too many. The creature crawled onto the wall beside the staircase. Its limbs twisted unnaturally as it moved like a spider. Its face changed constantly. Different mouths, different eyes, different skin, as if multiple people were trapped beneath its flesh trying to escape. Daniel nearly vomited. The creature smiled using his own face. "Daniel," it whispered sweetly. Elias pointed the radio toward it. Static screamed from the speakers. The creature recoiled violently. Its body jerked backward. The walls around it blackened. "It hates the frequency," Elias said. The creature's head snapped sideways, its jaw unhinged impossibly wide, and from inside its mouth came dozens of human voices screaming together. The lights suddenly returned. Bright white illumination flooded the cabin. The creature vanished. Gone. Daniel looked around wildly. Nothing. Only silence. Elias stared toward the hallway. "No." "What?" "When the lights come back," Elias whispered, "it means it's hunting." A loud knock echoed at the front door. 3 slow knocks. Daniel jumped. Then came a familiar voice. His mother. "Danny, open the door." Daniel's blood froze. His mother died 6 years ago. Again the voice called. "Honey, please let me in." Tears filled Daniel's eyes involuntarily. The voice sounded perfect, warm, gentle, real. Elias grabbed Daniel's arm. "Don't listen." Another knock. "Danny?" Daniel shook violently. The thing outside began crying, softly, exactly like his mother used to cry. "You left me alone." Daniel covered his ears. "It's not her," Elias whispered. The crying stopped instantly. Then a deep, distorted growl came through the door. "Open it." The entire cabin shook. Windows rattled violently. The radio screamed with static again. And suddenly, every electronic device in the room turned on simultaneously. Television, computer, speakers, phones, all blasting the same image. The forest. Black trees swaying in silence. And standing between them, thousands of pale faces, watching. A figure stepped forward on every screen, tall, featureless, its face smooth like melted wax, except for a giant smiling mouth. The thing spoke directly through the electronics. "You heard us." The screens shattered. Glass exploded across the room. Daniel screamed. Blood dripped from cuts on his cheek. Elias grabbed him. "We have to get underground." "Underground where?" "The station bunker." Rain hammered the cabin. Outside, shapes moved around the house. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Daniel looked through the broken window. People stood among the trees, motionless, different ages, different clothes, all smiling, all staring at the cabin, none of them blinking. Elias opened a trap door beneath the kitchen rug. A narrow tunnel descended into darkness. Daniel hesitated. A voice whispered directly beside his ear, "Don't go down there." He spun around. Nobody. Elias shoved him toward the tunnel. "Hurry!" The moment Daniel climbed down, something slammed against the front door upstairs. Wood splintered. Another slam. Another. The creature had entered. Elias sealed the trap door above them. Darkness swallowed the tunnel. Only the radio's dim red light remained. The tunnel smelled like wet earth and decay. Daniel followed Elias deeper underground. The walls were lined with old symbols scratched into the dirt. "What are those?" Daniel whispered. "Warnings." They walked for several minutes. Behind them, faint scratching echoed from above. The creature followed. Finally, the tunnel opened into an underground bunker. Concrete walls, rusty shelves, old emergency supplies, and dozens of radios, some still active, crackling softly. Daniel looked around in disbelief. "What is this place?" Elias locked the bunker door. "Where we tried to stop it." On the far wall hung photographs, missing persons, hundreds of them, children, hikers, families, campers, all vanished around Black Pines Forest over the last 30 years. Daniel stared in horror. "What happened to them?" Elias looked exhausted. "It heard them." Daniel sat heavily. "This can't be real." Elias switched on an old tape recorder. Static filled the bunker. Then a recording played. A terrified woman speaking rapidly. "Day 6 underground. It keeps calling to us from outside. It knows our names now. Sarah opened the door last night because she heard her husband crying. We found pieces of her this morning." Daniel's face drained of color. The recording continued. "It doesn't kill quickly. I think it learns from people while they're alive. It copies them, their voices, their memories, maybe even their souls." A loud banging interrupted the recording. The woman screamed, then silence. The tape ended. Daniel whispered, "What is it?" Elias rubbed his face. "We never found out." The bunker lights flickered. Something moved outside the door. A voice echoed through the hallway. "Elias." Elias froze. A woman's voice. Soft. Broken. "Please let me in." Daniel saw tears forming in Elias's eyes. My wife, Elias whispered. The voice outside sobbed quietly. I'm cold. Elias gripped the radio tightly. She died 11 years ago. The voice changed instantly. Its tone deepened unnaturally. You left her. Something slammed against the bunker door. The metal dented inward. Daniel jumped back. Again. Boom. Again. Boom. Dust fell from the ceiling. Elias rushed to another shelf and pulled out an old map. There's another exit through the mining tunnels. Daniel nodded quickly. They grabbed flashlights and supplies. The banging behind them intensified. The metal door bent further inward with each impact. Something incredibly strong pushed from the other side. Daniel followed Elias through a narrow passage. The deeper they went underground, the colder the air became. Soon their breath fogged visibly. The tunnel widened into ancient mining shafts. Rusty rails disappeared into darkness. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling. Then Daniel noticed something horrifying. Whispers, coming from the walls. Hundreds of voices, murmuring endlessly. He shined his flashlight closer. Faces protruded faintly beneath the rock. Human faces, trapped inside the stone. Mouths moving, eyes blinking slowly. Daniel stumbled backward in terror. One face turned toward him, its lips cracked open. Help us. Elias pulled him away. Don't stop walking. But those people, they're gone. The whispers grew louder, voices calling Daniel's name, begging, laughing, crying. The tunnel ahead split into 3 directions. Elias studied the map, then froze. Fresh footprints covered the ground, bare human footprints, leading deeper underground. Daniel whispered, We're not alone down here. A child's laughter echoed somewhere in the darkness, very close. Daniel's flashlight beam shook. Did you hear that? Elias nodded slowly. Then they heard another sound. Breathing. Heavy. Wet. Directly ahead. Something moved in the darkness beyond the tunnel. Tall. Unnaturally tall. Its limbs scraped the ceiling. The flashlight briefly illuminated pale skin, and dozens of eyes, covering its body, all blinking independently. The creature whispered with many voices at once. Daniel. They ran. Footsteps thundered through the tunnels. The creature chased them rapidly. Its limbs cracked against the stone walls. The tunnel shook. Daniel could hear it laughing. Human laughter. Children, women, men, all mixed together. Elias shouted, This way! They turned sharply into another shaft. The creature slammed into the wall behind them. Stone exploded outward. Daniel nearly fell. The thing crawled after them with horrifying speed. Its body stretched unnaturally as it squeezed through the tunnel. Faces surfaced beneath its skin, screaming. The radio emitted deafening static. The creature recoiled briefly. Elias grabbed a flare from his bag and lit it. Red light flooded the tunnel. The creature shrieked. Not like an animal, like thousands of humans screaming in agony together. It retreated into darkness, for the moment. Daniel collapsed against the wall, gasping. What the hell does it want from me? Elias stared at him grimly. Because you watched the tape. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to. Daniel shook his head violently. No, this is insane. Monsters don't exist. Elias slowly looked up. Neither did radio waves once. Silence filled the tunnel. Then, a distant radio transmission crackled through the darkness. If anyone survives, burn the archive. Daniel frowned. What archive? Elias's expression darkened. The original recordings. He pointed deeper underground. The station kept tapes, thousands of them. Every transmission ever received from the forest. Daniel's stomach dropped. You recorded it? We didn't know what it was at first. Elias looked haunted. We thought it was some unknown frequency, strange noises coming through emergency channels at night. His hands trembled. Then people started disappearing. The tunnel around them suddenly vibrated softly. A low humming filled the air. Daniel covered his ears. What is that sound? Elias's face turned pale. It's singing. The humming grew louder, and beneath it came whispers. Thousands of whispers, all saying the same thing. Come closer. Daniel felt dizzy, his thoughts blurred. The sound seemed to crawl directly into his brain. Images flashed through his mind. Dark forests, open mouths, people kneeling before giant shadows, a tower hidden beneath the earth. And at the top of the tower, something enormous waiting in darkness. Daniel snapped back to reality when Elias slapped him hard. Don't listen to it. Daniel blinked rapidly. Blood trickled from his nose. What was that? Elias whispered. It gets inside your head. The humming abruptly stopped. Then came silence. Absolute silence. Even the dripping water ceased. Daniel noticed Elias slowly backing away. What? Elias pointed behind him. Daniel turned. A little girl stood in the tunnel, maybe 8 years old, wearing a yellow raincoat, her face hidden beneath wet black hair. Daniel stared. Hey, are you okay? The girl tilted her head. Then Daniel saw her feet, backward, bent the wrong way. Elias whispered, Don't talk to it. The girl slowly lifted her head. Her face had no eyes, only a giant, smiling mouth. It opened wider, too wide, and inside the darkness of her throat, more faces screamed silently. Daniel backed away in horror. The girl suddenly sprinted toward them. Her limbs snapped violently as she moved. Elias fired the flare gun. The burning flare struck her chest. She exploded into black ash mid-run. The tunnel filled with screaming voices. Then silence. Daniel stared at the ashes. Oh my God. Elias looked exhausted. It can wear people. They continued deeper underground. Soon the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. Daniel's flashlight illuminated something impossible. An underground radio tower. Ancient. Gigantic. Its metal structure disappeared upward into darkness beyond sight. Thousands of wires spread across the cavern walls like veins, and surrounding the tower, human bodies, hundreds of them, fused into the stone, alive. Their mouths moved silently, eyes twitching. Daniel nearly collapsed. What is this place? Elias whispered. The source. At the base of the tower sat rows of tapes, thousands, each labeled with dates stretching back decades. Daniel noticed the oldest tape, 1954. Elias walked toward the archive slowly. We tried destroying them before. What happened? Elias looked at the bodies in the walls. It hurt us. Suddenly, the cavern lights flickered on by themselves. Old floodlights illuminated the massive chamber, and Daniel finally saw the ceiling. His scream echoed through the cavern. The ceiling wasn't stone. It was flesh. Miles of pale human flesh covering the cavern roof. Veins pulsed slowly. Eyes opened everywhere, watching them. The entire cavern was alive. A deep voice vibrated through the air, not heard, felt. You came back. Elias grabbed gasoline cans stacked nearby. "Start pouring." Daniel snapped out of his terror. They splashed gasoline across the tapes, across the tower, across everything. The cavern began trembling. The flesh ceiling convulsed. Screams erupted from the walls. The deep voice thundered again. "We remember you." Faces began emerging from the tower itself, stretching outward from the metal. Daniel recognized some of them, missing people from the photographs. One face looked directly at him. "Please don't burn us," it whispered. Daniel froze. Elias lit a match. "We end this now." The ground shook violently. Something massive moved beneath the cavern floor. The tower emitted a deafening signal. Daniel's ears burst with pain. Blood streamed down his neck. And suddenly, every tape in the cavern began playing simultaneously. Thousands of voices filled the air, screaming, laughing, begging, praying. Daniel saw shadows moving beneath the flesh ceiling. Huge shadows, far too large to be human. The voice thundered again. "You listened." A gigantic shape descended slowly from the darkness above, not fully visible, only pieces. An enormous eye, a mouth stretching across impossible distance, countless limbs unfolding. Daniel's mind struggled to comprehend it. The creature was too large, too wrong. Elias threw the match. Fire erupted instantly. Flames spread across the tapes, across the tower. The cavern screamed, literally screamed. The walls, the ceiling, the bodies, everything alive shrieked together. The gigantic shape above convulsed violently. The tower began collapsing. "Run!" Elias shouted. They sprinted through the tunnels as explosions echoed behind them. Fire chased them underground. The cavern collapsed inward. Screams followed them through the darkness. Daniel glanced back once. The gigantic eye stared directly at him through the collapsing cavern. Then everything fell apart. Stone crashed around them. Dust filled the air. Elias pushed Daniel ahead. The tunnel behind them imploded. They barely escaped into the forest. Cold rain poured from the sky. Black smoke rose from the mountainside. Daniel collapsed on the muddy ground, gasping. "It's over." Elias didn't answer. Daniel looked up. Elias stared toward the forest with horror. The trees were full of people, thousands, standing silently among the woods, watching, every single one smiling. Daniel whispered, "No." The forest echoed with whispers, the same sentence repeated endlessly. "You heard us." One by one, the people began walking forward, slow, silent, endless. Daniel backed away. The rain suddenly stopped. Complete silence consumed the forest. Then Daniel's phone vibrated. A notification. He stared at the screen. His latest YouTube upload. The Black Pines broadcast. Uploaded automatically. 10 million views, still climbing. Comments flooded endlessly. People writing the same thing repeatedly. "I hear it too." Daniel looked up slowly. From deep within the forest, a radio signal crackled. Then a familiar voice whispered through the trees. His own voice. "Come closer." The smiling people stopped moving. All at once, they pointed toward Daniel. And somewhere beyond the trees, something enormous smiled back. Part 2. Daniel and Elias ran through the forest until dawn. Neither spoke. Neither looked behind them. But the whispers followed, always just beyond hearing. By sunrise, they reached an abandoned highway gas station, miles from Black Pines. The building looked forgotten. Broken windows, rust-covered pumps, a flickering "open" sign buzzing weakly in the rain. Daniel collapsed against the wall. His entire body shook uncontrollably. Elias locked the station doors. Then he covered every window with old newspapers. Daniel stared blankly. What now? Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he switched on an old television behind the counter. Static. Then local news appeared. A female reporter spoke nervously. Authorities continue investigating reports of mass disappearances near Black Pines National Forest. Residents from nearby towns have described hearing unidentified radio frequencies throughout the night. The screen suddenly glitched. The reporter froze mid-sentence, then slowly smiled. Too wide, too far. The television emitted a high-pitched ringing sound. The reporter looked directly into the camera. "We can hear you." The TV exploded. Daniel screamed and stumbled backward. Glass rained across the station. Elias looked defeated. "It's spreading faster now." "What does that mean?" Elias rubbed bloodshot eyes. "It doesn't need the forest anymore." Daniel's stomach twisted. "What?" "The broadcast spreads through signals." Elias pointed toward Daniel's phone. "Phones, radios, internet, video uploads." Daniel felt sick. "My channel." Elias nodded. "You helped it escape." Daniel stared at the floor in horror. Millions of people had watched his upload. Millions. A low buzzing sound suddenly filled the station. Daniel looked toward the ceiling. The fluorescent lights flickered rapidly. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Then every radio in the gas station turned on simultaneously. Static screamed through the building. A distorted voice emerged. "More are listening." Daniel covered his ears. Elias smashed the radios with a baseball bat. But the voice continued anyway, now coming from the walls, from the floor, from inside Daniel's own head. "We are growing." Daniel collapsed to his knees. Images flooded his mind again. Cities, crowds, millions of smiling faces staring upward at something descending from the sky. The vision vanished suddenly. Daniel gasped. Elias looked terrified. "It showed you something, didn't it?" Daniel nodded slowly. "What is it trying to do?" Elias whispered, "Be heard." Outside the gas station, a car pulled into the parking lot. Daniel immediately froze. A family stepped out. Mother, father, young son. Normal. Completely normal. The father knocked on the glass. "Hey, are you guys open?" Daniel rushed toward the door. Elias grabbed him violently. "No." "What are you talking about? They need help." Elias pointed carefully. The family stood perfectly still outside, not moving, not blinking, all smiling. The little boy slowly raised a portable radio. Static crackled. Then the child spoke in a deep, distorted voice impossible for a human throat. "Let us in." Daniel backed away in horror. The family began knocking harder, smiling wider, their mouths stretched unnaturally across their faces. The glass cracked. Elias pulled Daniel toward the back exit. "We leave, now." As they escaped through the rear door, the gas station windows shattered behind them. The family crawled inside on all fours. Their bones snapped loudly as their bodies twisted. The child laughed. Dozens of voices laughed with him. Daniel and Elias fled toward Elias's truck, hidden behind the building. The engine roared alive. They sped onto the highway. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Daniel noticed abandoned vehicles lining the roadside. Dozens, their doors hanging open. No people anywhere. Only static pouring faintly from car radios. Elias drove faster. "We need to reach Portland before nightfall." "Why Portland?" "There's someone who studied the signal." Daniel stared out the window. Billboards flashed past. Every electronic sign glitched as they passed. For brief moments, smiling faces appeared on the screens, watching the truck. Daniel suddenly realized something. What happens to the people it takes? Elias stayed silent too long. Finally, he answered. "They become part of the broadcast." Daniel looked sick. "So those faces..." Elias nodded. "They're still alive somehow." The truck radio crackled. Elias turned it off immediately, but faint whispering continued anyway. Daniel stared into the side mirror. A figure stood far behind them on the highway. Tall, impossible to fully see, yet somehow still keeping pace with the truck. Daniel blinked. The figure vanished. Night arrived too quickly. Rain returned. The highway grew empty. Then the GPS screen flickered. Route recalculating. The map changed on its own, redirecting them back toward Black Pines. Elias cursed and unplugged the system, but the speakers suddenly activated. "Turn around." The truck engine died. Everything went dark. The vehicle rolled to a stop in the middle of nowhere. Daniel whispered, "No." Outside, the rain intensified, and from the darkness around the highway, shapes emerged. People, hundreds of them, standing motionless in the rain, all smiling, all staring at the truck. The nearest figure slowly raised its head. Daniel recognized him instantly. Himself. A perfect copy of Daniel stood outside in the storm, smiling. The copy spoke through the windshield. "You should have stayed in the forest." The other smiling figures began walking toward the truck, slowly, synchronously. Elias grabbed a shotgun from beneath the seat. "Stay down." The first figure reached the truck. It pressed its face against the glass. Its smile widened impossibly farther. Cracks spread across its skin. And beneath the flesh, other faces writhed underneath. The figure whispered, "We know you now." The windshield shattered. The thing lunged inside. Elias fired. The blast tore the creature backward. Black liquid splattered across the truck. The smiling crowd immediately rushed forward. Daniel screamed. Elias restarted the engine desperately. The truck roared back alive. They sped through the crowd. Bodies slammed against the vehicle. Some crawled across the roof, their fingers scratching violently at the metal. One face appeared upside down at Daniel's window. His mother again, crying. "Why did you leave me?" Daniel shut his eyes. The truck accelerated wildly. Finally, the creatures fell behind. Except one, the tall figure, still standing in the road ahead, motionless, waiting. Elias swerved violently. The truck missed it by inches. But as they passed, Daniel looked directly at the figure, and for one horrifying second, he saw what it truly looked like. Not a body, not flesh, but thousands of moving faces forming one giant shape, all whispering together. listening, always listening. And deep inside the shifting mass, one enormous eye opened, looking directly into Daniel's mind. The truck crashed through a guardrail. Everything went black. Daniel awoke upside down. Smoke filled the truck. Blood dripped into his eyes. Rain poured through shattered glass. Elias hung unconscious beside him. Daniel unbuckled himself painfully. Outside, the forest loomed silently. Not black pines, but close enough. The whispers had returned. Soft, excited. Daniel shook Elias awake. "We have to move." Elias groaned weakly. Then his eyes widened. He stared past Daniel. Daniel turned slowly. The smiling people stood between the trees again, closer this time. Dozens, then hundreds, then more emerging endlessly from the darkness, all whispering together, "Come closer." The tall figure stood behind them all, watching, waiting. And above the forest, hidden among thunderclouds, something enormous shifted in the sky, listening to the world below. The broadcast had only begun.